Oh, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. Well, I'm glad you're here and I hope that you've had a fantastic week, and I hope the week that's coming towards you is a good one as well. This week, I wanted to talk a little bit about choosing faraway places. Going away to places where no one knows where you are for the sake of being alone, to somewhere you can breathe and think and create on a deeper level. How many of us take that time and regularly, departing there regularly enough that you know the benefits that will follow by looking after yourself earnestly, not by chance, but by design. We don't always end up where we think, and certainly not know what we could stumble upon that could well be life-changing, like I didn't foresee a cottage in the bush, but did I? Looking back, I remembered that I did imagine a split-level cottage. It was cosy and had a wood fire and views for days. It was secluded and hidden by deep forests and dirt tracks, and it sort of was this wholesome retreat. I used to just dream about this as maybe the place that somehow I would end up living in one day. And because I have lived in some really amazing places, and how they came about was quite amazing. And so I didn't and don't feel that it's so, odd that you would, really fantasize and imagine the ultimate place to live, or the ultimate place as a retreat. And also there were, wildlife, deer, wombats, kangaroos. You could hear bird song, sightings of bright coloured rosellas and growls in the bush by night, wild gardens and greenhouses with last season's offerings and beds with flourishing spinach and broccoli, a place to live and enjoy the blueness of the sky and the greenness of everything, the peacefulness, the silence and the natural weaving of birds in flight and the humming of bees. A place to find peace within yourself, to be disconnected from the world, and while feeling safe and profoundly peacefully calm, knowing that you can come here anytime. I had thought that it was a place in my mind that I had come up with, but while sitting on the porch of this country cottage, I realised that it was it. Here it was, that the country cottage was here. It was real. Many of the details are not the same, but the main ones, even some of the minutiae, is bang on. This got me wondering about what I think about, even dream about on a subconscious level. It got me thinking about other times I'd thought and dreamed of something, and it sort of come to be. If in fact I had thought certain things into reality, then I wondered if I did, how did I do it? So over the years, I noticed that I hadn't been as specific with all the details, which might have been helpful. So it got me thinking about what it takes to be active in the conscious creating of your life. Intention would have to get the first mention, and perhaps the inspiration and motivation behind the intention. Intention is the seed that helps you find an aim and purpose to live by. An intent allows you to make the right decisions and choices, as it acts as a personal compass guiding you down the right path. Many people assume that intentions are the same as goals, but this is not true. Goals being focused on the future, intentions are a now thing. Goals are a destination or specific achievement. Intentions are lived every day, independent of achieving the goal or destination. I recall back in 1996, I'd had a call from a friend in New Zealand while I was living in Australia, and she's in amongst the conversation, she just suddenly asked me, when are you coming home? And that was it. The die was cast. That simple question of asking when I was coming home hit something deep inside. The course of action, it seemed, had been determined and was not going to be changed. I recall that moment like a bell chimed in my head, and suddenly my attention was going back to my then home in New Zealand. I had 3 daughters, my 3rd child a baby, and it was time. This is the part where I can say, because I now have 20/20 vision, had I not gone, I would have avoided a lot of heartache and loss of so much. I can also say it is just as well that we don't know what lies ahead, because we wouldn't learn too much. We might avoid feeling such pain and irreversible outcomes. In Australia, I had a flourishing highway, hamburger and salad business, and my kids were doing really well at school. We lived in the countryside, and I had not long, as I said, had a baby, my third daughter. It was a beautiful life where we lived. It was quiet and wholesome. We had moved from the city a couple of years prior, and we had become accustomed to the kids climbing trees and going on adventures. We lived on a large plot of land, very close to both the bush and the sea. Ideal it was. Great for living a nice life and so good for kids. Great for raising myself too. I've always loved open spaces, land, hills, valleys, mountains, lakes, dams, rivers, oceans, waterfalls. Have always felt a sense of home when in and around natural beauty. And I know so many of us can relate to that. So living where we lived was dazzling. It was like achieving a miracle, all because in the city I had to get out. I just never adjusted to city living. So we moved down the coast and it was truly lovely. I felt quite clever that I'd provided this for my daughters, seeing them so happy and free, hearing them laughing and running breathlessly and laughing, as I said, and pink cheeks and trying to talk all over each other, trying to tell me something all at the same time. And I just recall my own joy at seeing them so happy. Going back to New Zealand, the southern part of the South Island was a good move. It was every bit as beautiful, and it was an opportunity, I thought at the time, for my daughters to live where I'd been born and lived until I was 20 years old. This was yet another adventure for my family, and everyone thought it was fantastically exciting. And at the time I was around 34, so I wasn't old enough to consider it a risk, and I was still young enough to believe I could make something of the move. Age counts, it would appear, as different perspectives come with different ages. Like, for example, now in my 60s, I don't think I'd be so quick to make that kind of move, because my perspectives and my needs and wants obviously are much, much different. And when we're talking nearly 30 years ago. Now, that's approximate external explained. Looking back, hindsight, 2020 vision and all that, I was lost to myself back then. I was a faraway place. I was mothering 3 children with a problematic relationship, and on a profoundly unconscious level, I was taking myself home to feel like I belonged. I had zero clue then that you can't go back. That was it. That's what I was trying to do. I didn't realise it, but I needed to feel like I mattered. I wanted to know what it was like to have support, that I wanted to have family around me. I would have to do the whole shebang to find out that I didn't actually need any of it, the drama, the blatant lies and lack of care for any of us. I had wanted my girls to know their grandparents and auntie and uncles and cousins. That was another dream, mad assumption that was ever going to be anything of value. In fact, was something we had to stage left away from very quickly. I don't know that I was even thinking. I was lost to myself in many ways. I understand it now. I mean, I was raising 3 kids, and anyone that's raised kids knows that your life is intermingled with their needs and wants and family life. You're not having these long, ponderous moments of, what would I like? But anyway, I understand it all now. And after a huge separation and you're able to apply some logic, evidence and proof of how you're feeling, confirmation of what you hoped wasn't true, you can utterly be objective and mostly plain relieved that I didn't have to subject my family, myself, to any of the goo, my family being my daughters. That was my family of origin. It was so bad for my kids that my eldest daughter from the age of 12 was and remains convinced that I'm not related to them. She was so horrified by what she witnessed, saw and heard. I also wanted to get back into the music scene, as it had been such a big part of my life before I left the country when I was 20. I wanted to breathe life into my highly treasured friendships, and it is beautiful and so close to the Southern Alps, and was a coastal town like where we were living in Australia. I loved the idea of my daughters living where I'd lived as a child, as I said, and a teenager, and just the thought of them possibly going to the same schools. I had been gone so long, I could never had known that was never going to happen. This is not an unusual outcome for any of us who want to go back, but if you have been gone a long time and grown from 20 years old into your mid-30s, you're not going to find anything the same. So I had that experience firsthand, not from someone who has never left their hometown and have no idea of how any of that feels. It's like gossip, getting advice, consider the source. Such a brilliant yardstick. I've used it for years. Consider the source. While back in my hometown, I did the Rocky Horror Show, playing 2 roles, Magenta and the Candy Stripe Girl, opening and closing the show with science fiction. And in the middle of the show, my relationship fell apart completely and I had to keep going, as you do, fronting up to the Rocky Horror Show by night and running my cafe by day and to the evening. It was the first conscious experience I had of the show must go on. And also I could bury myself in my roles while going through the breakup, the father of my youngest daughter. I had zero idea that that was going to happen. Just one day he threatened the safety of myself, my baby, and it was scary stuff that I had no option but to walk away or run or drive away very quickly, and still had to front up to the cafe every morning at 5:30 because I was running a business. You don't show up because you're having a bad day or your life is being threatened. Well, actually, I would now strongly advise that you don't show up. But I was very committed to my business, and I had become very used to working under a lot of stress, and so it all just felt normal to me. Looking back, I just shake my head and go, oh my goodness. So at that point, running in that straight line, it made sense to me. Besides, I also had employees and a delivery van that had to be filled at 6 a.m. or by 6 a.m. in the morning with hot food and drink. So get the picture? Yeah, it was pretty full on. I didn't know I could stop. I didn't know I didn't have to turn up. I had no value on my peace of mind. It was long gone. So just more lessons, marble dwellers, while I was still back there. Man, it was one thing after the other. After that, I did face it and started developing self-value. What needed to go, sure, got sorted there in the plate that was in the space of 11 months. I achieved so much and lost so much, and ultimately you look back and you realise your faraway place is the place to be. So I left for Australia and never regretted the decision. I left because I could. And while I hadn't questioned any aspect of my family before I left Australia, I was walking straight into perhaps one of the biggest wake-up calls of my life. It was a biggie, marble dwellers. Actually, no, perhaps it eroded anything that wasn't fixed to the ground, and that was just about everything that meant anything to me. My eldest girl had started her first year at high school, and although she was doing really well, she just hated it. And that was all it took for me to make plans to go back home to Australia. The emphasis is on home. I won't be happy if any of my kids aren't happy, and all we did was work and sleep to work, and mostly under duress. Yeah, it was the biggest wake-up call for sure. It throws chills up my spine when I think of it all now. I've heard myself say many times, it is just as well that we don't know what is ahead of us. We may never get out of bed. We would actually then never grow. Sometimes we have to go to faraway places to find what was always there, which is ourselves. We get buried with all the experiences and cannot see that we are the one. That if we develop self-care, the ding-dongs can't hurt you. You can see them coming. You can say no. You can choose and stick to your own lane. But to choose your own lane, you have to be wide awake, self-aware, and let me tell you, if you're not, then none of this will make sense, or at least it won't seem important. And if it feels important, but you're not too sure, then know that change is coming. In fact, change is always knocking on our doors, isn't it? It's up to us to open the door and be open to change. Because if we don't take the clues, see the hints, it seems to me that things get unimaginably worse. The universe then, for want of another way of putting it, is insisting on you getting with the program. And we usually know by that stage what we have to do. I have also come to understand that not being fully awake can also be a massive form of protection. I'm pleased on a few levels that I wasn't quite awake to what was going on around me. I wasn't even suspicious. Looking back, the old 2020 vision, the pieces come together and there lies the truth of it. And for me, it was years after that the pieces floated together. Without choosing, I had nestled myself into a faraway place, and looking back, I was very fortunate that I did. I knew for sure in those early days that someone had my back. In Australia, on my return, I'd been offered a beautiful home that was nestled into the hills. Far in the distance, you could see the sparkling ocean. I'd spoken to local people who'd been on a waiting list for over 2 years to be able to get a country home. I would find out bit by bit over time that I really had been looked after. I had 3 kids and we had no one else. It never felt like we were on our own, but we were. Again, not knowing that was a great help. I was technically still asleep and I was just waking up. By this stage, I would say I was around 36 years old. I didn't know that I had been dropped like a hot potato and that no one was coming to help, let alone care if we were okay. I am so pleased I didn't know that. Having 3 kids to raise, mentor, love meant I was otherwise engaged. I knew I was lucky to have such an amazing band of girls. There wasn't and isn't anyone like them. These are the ones I want on my side who trust in me when the rest were being the biggest losers of all time. Yep, I'm proud of each and every one of them. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hashtag choosing faraway places. I had never lived rurally and found I just loved it, although the first few months I didn't sleep until 4 a.m. I was a little bit scared. The silence was deafening. I had never really known such quiet. I was scared that if anyone came, how would I defend my 3 children? We were far away from anything or anyone. In a flash of insight, I ran up the hill of our property where there was a garage that could house easily 6 large vehicles. It had a sink area and its own water tank. There I found a big, long steel pipe. It was a bit on the heavy side, so much so I had to drag it down the hill to then pull it into the house and roll it under my bed. That, marble dwellers, was going to be my protection should I require it. Just made me feel safe, so that was a good thing. Didn't occur to me until months later that there was no way I could use it as a weapon. Couldn't lift the bloody thing up. Can you just imagine it with the robber coming in to get me and I'm saying, hold on, stop. No, I've just got to pick this thing. Hold on, I've nearly got it. But by the time I worked that out, I had since found safety and I had moved into a feeling that I was at home and I was at peace. I had, though, bought a sorry used pair of men's boots at the thrift store, placed them at the front door along with all our shoes on the porch, making it look like a man lived there. I'll never know if it helped or deterred anyone if they had come to the property when we were all out, but we never had any problems. But one dark winter's night, we saw headlights of a car coming down our driveway. Where we lived, there were no street lights and no bitumen on the road. It was all dirt roads. We were tucked down the side of a large hill, so the house lights couldn't even be seen from the road. So when someone was driving in, it put me on notice straight away. I opened up the front door and there were 3 men in the front seat of a ute. One yelled from the driver's side out his window if we knew the Browns. And I said, I'll just go and ask my husband, hold on. I then used my man voice who said, who the fuck is that? And then I talked low as though I was responding to the question and asked if he knew the Browns. And my husband sort of made a low sound like he was saying no. I went back out and said, sorry, can't help, never heard of them. The people on the next property might know them. They thanked me, turned around and left. Back up the hill from whence they came. That never happened again, but it made me realise that we could be sitting ducks if the wrong sort drove down that driveway. It never occurred to me before. We were 4 females, my daughters ranging from 2 years old to 12. I found out later that the owners of the property I was renting from lived in the top building, that large garage-style building I mentioned before, and while they were building the home that we lived in, which was a 2-storey, 4-bedroom place with sandstone flooring and pink shag pile throughout, that's correct, pink shag pile throughout. So a no-shoe policy was instigated immediately. But I didn't have a vacuum cleaner, so we had to be careful what we lugged into the house when the kids slept. I washed the carpet with a rag and a bowl of water, say, once a week. And I tell you what, they came up looking bloody great. So the faraway place was not going to suit long term. But meanwhile, we had made friends with a neat couple of girls who had a son that my daughters knew at school. And at this juncture of proceedings, I had started thinking of designing my life, having a more conscious effort in my life as my 2 eldest girls were becoming more like young women than kids. Tammy and Mo, our friends, they had remembered my food at a cafe I'd had sold before we'd actually gone to New Zealand for 11 months, and they loved the friendship. Well, actually, I should be clear, I had that business for 3 years and we went to New Zealand for 11 months. I just realised how that sounded, marble dwellers, but anyway. And they loved the friendship my daughters had with their son. And so pretty soon we just became best buddies. It was like finally something wonderful had happened, and they were just such caring and fun people that I didn't feel like the blow-ins in a new community at all. We had so much fun with barbecues and movie nights and holidays, and we went on 2 riverboat holidays together. It was just fantastic, and all of that is etched in our memories for all time. They loved my kids and were always kind and considerate, and I thought the absolute world of them and their son. And we laughed a lot. They had a pool room. We played a lot of pool. Mo and I played guitar together. I sang, usually my originals, as well as enjoyed playing squash. The bottom line was we always had fun, and it was so easy to be together. Chronologically, there was so much more, but in wanting to tell you my own story in regard to faraway places that we can take ourselves geographically as well as physically and mentally. As long as we can find home within and can come back to ourselves, then journeys are truly beneficial for growth and expansion of thinking and witness fully awake our own development. We can always run the risk of being emotionally distant while passing these byways, but people who get it won't be offended. They'll support you through until you find your own people. Emotional detachment is a inability or unwillingness to connect with other people on an emotional level. It may help protect some people from unwanted drama, anxiety, or stress. For others, detachment is always voluntary. I have an aversion to drama. That's also code for moronic bullshit. Cannot deal, will not do it, just won't. When wrong is wrong and someone's trying to dress it up as okay, then I'm out. My journey of faraway places when I ventured to New Zealand, I settled there, got my 2 older girls into school, I started a new business, and I was in the Rocky Horror Show. All this in 11 months. What I lost, I didn't have. I just didn't know it. I don't know what's worse, but it was the end of how I identified as in someone's daughter, gone. Someone's sister, gone. Someone's auntie, gone. Someone's friend, gone. Because for so many of us, where we are born geographically can be our identity, can be where you started life and remains a fact. It can't be taken from you. But I chose to let it go and not call it home anymore. That was a biggie for me. That was I guess it was a real loss, feeling like New Zealand is my home. No, I didn't feel like that at all. That was gone too. And it just never has returned. None of that information ever changed again. I had no idea how final it was all going to be. But after a few years, you get the picture and you sigh, you breathe, and you think, and you thank yourself for having the courage to explore a faraway place, to allow time to show the truth and to get on with your life in a lovely way in spite of it all. There is no finish line for your life. # choosing faraway places. It really is never too late. But what I mean is no matter how old your children, there's always opportunity for us women, for us mums to change and grow, create new pathways of thought to allow us to be more at peace with ourselves and make decisions that, they're ours to make. It's a chef kiss. And now that it's over 25 years ago and it seems like a wild adventure looking at it now, there are people I will always love and admire, and I can safely say that they don't know that I do. As an older woman, as an ageing woman, the world needs to catch up with us. If I was to wish for one thing, it would be to expect more of yourself. As we get older, we can think life should be a certain way. Hell, even the young ones think that getting older can, be plonked in one box and that's it. Wrong. I hope your wildest fantasies come true, become your truest reality, because dreaming big makes life worth living. Gets you right out of the old comfort zone or your recliner, maybe both. Well, marble dwellers, off and away I go. Thank you for popping in. Say g'day to the family and give the caterpillar a light and slight squeeze. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time. Okay? All right. Bye.